Hey guys, welcome back.
Hey guys, brand new podcast.
Hey, wait a minute. It's my podcast.
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
Enjoy. So we were talking before, we'll just start here.
Sure.
About the Resilience podcast we just released last week, I think.
Yeah.
And how you liked it.
I really loved it.
Thank you.
I felt like, well, as I was saying, Jocelyn, I know you're a great parent. And what I admire about your parenting style is that you do it your way. And you always have, like, ever since you were pregnant with Junie. I just remember you just saying how you wanted to raise your kids. And you just had a really clear idea of how to do that. And then in the podcast, Leanne, when you were giving all these examples of how you parent your daughters, I mean, I was learning a lot because my oldest is 10.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like I was really picking up on this tricky stage that we're at because it was a lot easier for me when they were younger. I feel like my best parenting ability years are like up to toddler age. And then once they start like navigating friendships and really fighting back on stuff, that's where I really struggle probably because of my upbringing where like I want to not be so strict. I want them to feel free. I want them to be able to do what they want to do and be their own people. But I liked hearing your way of sort of being very clear about expectations and the reasoning behind that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hear you. What I got, here's what was hard for me is parenting the poor parenting of other parents when their kids would come over, and the kid would come over and have this whole set of behaviors that was not okay in my house. Mm-hmm. Let's just say hitting, for an example. Obviously they weren't hitting really in elementary school, but that was one of my biggest challenges is then now I'm parenting someone else's kid. And I have to go back and reparent my own kid because now they've seen this behavior and went, ooh, that looks kind of nice. I think I'll do that. I used to call it trying on different behaviors. They're trying on their friend's behavior and, like a costume. Oh, she smarted off to mom. Let me try that.
Right. How far
feel
can I take
good.
it?
And now you're parenting another parent's poor parenting.
Right.
Would make me crazy. Not that everybody needs to parent the same, but I feel like there's some basic rules of society that we all have to go by.
Yes.
We all have to follow the law, right?
Yeah.
You can't drive when you're 14. It's against the law. You can't steal. It's against the law. You can't hit someone. It's against the law.
Right.
So it's kind of a good base to start where this isn't even my rule.
Mm-hmm.
This is the rule society has come up with that you have to comply with. So how do I start teaching you that when you're 4, right?
Yeah.
Hitting is an assault when you're an adult. So
Right.
let's cut the assault off at 4 when it's still okay.
Yeah, I've used that example too. Like you can't hit because when you're an adult and you hit, you go to jail.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
That's exactly right. I don't know. Parenting is I think when you don't have a roadmap, it's easier sometimes. And sometimes it's harder. You can put your feet on the couch.
Okay,
Make yourself
I just did.
good. That's fine. I don't know. Not having a roadmap makes it where you can just make it up as you go as long as you stay in integrity with yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that parenting lines up with your own integrity. And not everybody's is the same. Homework doesn't matter as much in your house as it does in mine. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I've been thinking about that conversation because it's so interesting how we have very similar values and how there are 2 different ways of approaching it.
Yeah.
But I also for me, it's always been the number one thing is modeling. So no matter what, I have to show up in the way that I want my kids to show up.
Right.
And I think before I had kids, it was so interesting because I was really judgy of like parents who were, they appeared to be letting their kids get away with things because they weren't screaming at them.
Right.
And now I'm like, I don't want my kids to scream at people. That's just not okay. I want them to always be calm and respectful, even if not always be calm and respectful. But for the most part, I want them to be calm and composed and respectful, even when they disagree with somebody.
Right.
So that's been interesting I like see other people's eyes on me when I'm like letting my kids get away with things. And I'm like, no. I actually know what I'm doing here.
Right.
I think I know what I'm doing.
Right.
This is strategic. This is strategic. We're winning the war, not the battle.
Inside,
right?
I'm raging.
Right. Wait till I get home.
Right.
I have a dummy that looks like both my kids in the closet, and I beat the shit out of them, and I feel so much better. Oh, wouldn't that be nice if we could do that?
And you make them watch.
And well, then now that may but not be an integrity for me. But the beating the shit out of them secretly, I'd be down for
You'd
that.
be okay for that.
100%. Oh, I would be decapitated by now. She'd have no head at all. But this is not why we're here to talk today.
No.
So tell me why we're here.
Okay. Well, we're here because Jocelyn and I, Jocelyn has been a friend of mine for a long time. And so I started working on this idea I had for helping women who have experienced baby loss. Mm-hmm. So miscarriage, stillbirth, or infant loss, tell their stories.
Right.
And that came about in a very long and windy way after the birth of my fourth child. His name was Michael. Mm-hmm. And he was full term when he was born. He lived for 2 days, and he had a condition called congenital diaphragmatic hernia. And so that's when the diaphragm, when the baby's developing, doesn't grow all the way across. And the intestines sort of migrate into the lung area, preventing the lungs from growing. So they are fine in the womb. I mean, they have everything they need. And then once they're born, it's a matter of finding out whether this child has enough lung capacity to survive. And so the survival rate is about 50%. Mm-hmm. And so we knew from 20 weeks of pregnancy that he might not survive. And
so you knew when you were pregnant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were still extremely hopeful. And, I know with the topic of resilience, it was like that to me, when we got that diagnosis, I was still just like, oh, we'll beat this. Yeah. Like I 100% thought like that 50% of people who lose their babies, like that's not us. We're going to do everything we can do. We go to UCLA hospital and they'll take care of it. And Jocelyn, you were on the email list where I like had my little email campaign, and I was like, everyone, here's what's going on. And we would like you guys to say prayers, whatever you can do, send good vibes, whatever. I didn't say good vibes. People wrote back and said, we'll send good vibes.
You're like, I didn't ask for that.
Right? We'll do our best. We won't pray. We'll do our best. No, but people were extremely supportive. And I just really saw it at first as just like this thing to overcome. And we were going to make sure to overcome it. And so we went to UCLA, which was phenomenal. And they said there's this experimental surgery in Houston where it really sounds experimental too. They do an in utero surgery of inserting a balloon, little teeny tiny balloon, into the baby's mouth.
What?
And you leave it there. I know it sounds like I'm making it up, but I'm not.
How do they even figure out how to do that?
I don't know. But they discovered that when they do that, the amniotic fluid that normally like freely goes in and out of the mouth, that way it would create pressure for the lungs to have to push down and grow.
Wow.
Yeah. So we went and talked to this doctor, and it was, I haven't checked to see like how far this has come now, because this was 5 years ago almost. But at the time, it just sounded really out there.
Yeah.
And the survival rates weren't that much better. Like it was almost definitely you would go into preterm labor because of this. And so your child would not be full term. And, we just thought this doesn't really feel like a fit for us. We'd rather just kind of stay the course, and whatever happens with this baby. And somewhere in there, I mean, I really was praying a lot. I was just like constantly reading spiritual stuff and I don't know, thinking about how to think about it overall. And somewhere in there, Mark and I, thankfully, I feel this was a lucky thing that we both kind of decided to stop working so much to create an outcome, because we felt that it was really, in the end, it's not it's not in our of course it's not in our hands, but
Right.
it's not even our desire, it doesn't really matter. And so we kind of thought of it as, we had 3 older kids at the time. So that's my 10-year-old, 9-year-old, and 7-year-old. And they, just like your kids, they came out and they had their own agenda. You know what I mean? They are their own person. They clearly have their own path to something that we don't know what it is yet. But that's kind of his story too. That's Michael's story. So we just said, we don't know like what is in store for him, but we're just going to be open to whatever it is. So then when he was born, he got hooked up to machines right away. And it seemed like he was doing okay because whatever numbers they're looking at, like the oxygenation and the heartbeat and all that stuff, was okay. But the second night they said, these numbers are not looking good anymore. And sometimes there's a honeymoon period when the baby's born and it looks like everything's good and you're going to be okay. And so, we totally thought like, okay, we're in the clear. He's going to be in the hospital for a while. Maybe we'll have to do this like surgery to fix the diaphragm because that's very common for kids with CDH who are born. They'll like patch it up if there's enough lung tissue. They can patch it, and then sometimes there are more surgeries, but like they can still live a normal life. So they did an MRI the next day, and they said we didn't really see any lung tissue.
Oh my goodness.
I know. So they said there's just no way like his lungs will sustain his organs, and you need to think about saying goodbye. And they said, we'll try one more machine to see if it will like prolong his levels so that he could grow some lung tissue. But when they tried that machine, that did not work either. So in the hospital, the staff was so incredibly amazing at like helping us say goodbye to him. And until then, I had been really, I don't know if I guess it was until the second day where I thought like, okay, we're going to be taking this kid home and here we go. I don't know. It didn't really hit me until we were holding him in the hospital and they said, okay, let us know when you're ready and we'll remove the tubes and everything. So that was the very emotional part of that experience. It was also just incredibly, I don't know if you guys have been around someone who's died, but like to just be there in that moment is unbelievable, to get to be with somebody as they die.
Right.
And I just wasn't really equipped, I feel like, to know how to handle that. And I just remember my husband being so amazing and like talking to him, and saying, you're going to be okay.
Oh,
I wasn't expecting to get emotional here, but
it's okay. There's a tissue
but look
right
at
there.
Leanne. She's just such a good listener. She's just there. You're present. It's not, I can tell it's not like something that.
Well, it's a very difficult story to hear. It's, I can't imagine going through that. And I have like 18 questions already.
So many. And I want to say this too. Anne says that she wasn't prepared, but there are a lot of things about Anne that are remarkable, but Anne's ability to like communicate what she needed and to kind of like model how to be in that situation was remarkable. At Michael's funeral, and this is 100% true, Anne and her husband were comforting us. And I just am so grateful to have been in Anne's life when this happened, because she was, I'm sure you hate hearing how inspirational you were, but
I don't really talk with people that much about it. That's what I will be doing now.
Right.
But honestly, first of all, I was so grateful to have you in my life because you were an incredible friend and just supporter, and you were always like willing to do anything. And I remember you were always offering to help with the kids and stuff. But after we had him, like it was going home, and the kids who were, I keep trying to remember how old they were at the time. I think they were 2, 4, and 5, something like that. Like they had no concept.
Oh,
like
no.
we took the advice of the person in the hospital. She was like a child life expert. So she said, just give them very clear information, keep it brief, and let them come back to you with questions, which I was so freaking glad that she came and talked to me before we left the hospital. So I did that. And I was like, so what I was going to say, and I did say, was Michael was very sick and he is not coming home from the hospital. And, you know, I know you might feel really sad. We feel really sad. We were really excited to have him home, but he's not coming home from the hospital. And I remember they were just kind of like, so can we watch Dinosaur Train? Like,
They just had no concept.
no concept. And then, but this is the humor in all this stuff. A day later, my son says, so can we go visit him in the hospital since he's living there? Like I wasn't clear enough to
bless
say
his heart.
he died. I mean, I didn't say that part thinking I was keeping it real basic. And like, that was a crucial piece of
Maybe
information.
too basic. Maybe too basic.
Too basic. So we did have a lot of these like mini conversations
Right.
over the weeks. And my youngest, Vincent, it really did not hit home for him. And so like, of course, I still had my pregnancy belly for a long time. And he would always be like, patting my belly, baby in there,
Aw.
baby in there. I'd be like, no, he's not in there anymore. He died. And he'd be like, baby, you know, like he
No.
just didn't get it.
I mean, that is one thing that I remember being so hit by seeing you, and you had the baby belly and you had to pump, and you don't,
Yes.
like people who haven't been through this don't ever realize, oh, Jesus, here's a woman whose body is producing milk who.
Yeah. Body
Oh,
thinks
that's-
there's a baby somewhere.
Yeah, that's right.
That's crazy.
I know. And so what I've learned is that it can happen also with miscarriage. Your milk comes in, stillbirth. I mean, I guess I had been expecting it because when he was born, I was like, okay, I got to start pumping and storing my milk. And like, I want to keep the milk flow going and all that. And then going home, yeah, I'm still going out to the garage for 30 minutes at a time to pump.
Wait, why are you going out to the garage?
Oh, our house was tiny.
Oh, okay.
You need some privacy.
The kids were on me.
Oh,
I was like, I'm going to go to the garage.
You had to refinish
Yes,
garage.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
I, had
I
this,
should
like,
say
really
like the
not-
back office.
really
I
not
sat
a
on the
good
back
image.
bumper of my Volvo and pumped, right?
I'm like, this just went a totally different direction.
Yeah,
what the hell
right?
is going on in your
Hold
house, Anne?
on.
You remember where we lived?
I do, yes.
Neighbors passing by. Hey, just pumping my boobs. Everything's good. Nope, car's not broke down. I'm good. That's really funny.
Oh, no, it's just like some quiet time in that garage.
So I don't know if I ever told you this, but we went, well, you know this part. We went to your house and took your kids to the park a couple
remember.
of days after Michael died. And my kids must have been 5 and 3, 5 and 2, you know,
Yeah.
little. My kid, and on the way there, we were like, you know, the kids might be really sad. Just don't bring it up, which I would have such a different response now, having like really talked to you about this more.
Yeah.
But, you know, really just grilled it into my oldest. Do not bring this up. And so, of course, the minute that your oldest got in the car, my daughter says to her, are you sad about your brother dying? And Anne's oldest daughter, just goes, nope.
Nope.
And just, went about like,
But not only that, she was the one, because she was the oldest. She did not like to talk about it.
Mm.
She did not want me bringing it up. Like we did bring it up all the time. But when I would say like, hey, do you want to go to the cemetery and visit Michael's grave? I don't know, maybe later. Like it was just not something she wanted to talk about. Our middle child, who was 4, he wanted to talk all the time. He would openly cry. He was so like in tune with his feelings about it. And then our youngest, like I said,
he didn't. Yeah.
He was too little.
he was too little.
He was
so
too little.
interesting how much you like need to follow their lead, and what great advice you got from the lady, because
Yes.
you had 2
Well,
different kids in that.
And with our oldest, for years, it was like, okay, is this going to turn into like a psychosis for her that she's not
Right.
talking about it? And so I remember last year on his birthday, I was putting the kids to bed because we still put them to bed. They don't go to sleep on their own.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you mean put them to bed?
Like we sit with them in the room till they fall asleep.
Oh, you do? Well, you're a bad parent. Get out. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Now there's judgment.
No. There's no judgment here.
I'm chasing. We were sitting there and I was like, hey, it's Michael's birthday. And I thought I would tell you a little bit about his birthday and the time at the hospital because you guys were so young when it happened. And so I did talk about it. And when I got to the part of him dying, that's when she finally just let it all out. I mean, she cried. I swear it was like the first time she'd ever cried about it. And I was so relieved
Yeah.
that she could finally like let herself feel that about him.
My oldest is that way too. I think that she processes very privately and she does not want anybody to see what's going on. Now, the youngest for me is like your middle. It's all over her. Yeah. So I wonder if she processes vicariously through her little sister to an extent, which is not necessarily completely healthy in my perspective. I think what happened with your daughter is more healthy at some point. It doesn't have to be when everybody else does it, but at some point there has to be a processing just for her. And it always, for Georgia, seems to become where she can no longer hold it and then it falls out. Now she can't just say, I'm feeling really upset about something and I'm not even sure what it is. Let's chit chat till we figure it out. No, she's like, nothing's wrong with me. I don't know what you're talking about. And you're like, really? Is pea soup shooting out of your mouth sometime soon? Because you are possessed. And then 15 minutes later, she'll have a full meltdown. I don't know what's happening. And I'll go, perhaps. Could it be? Yeah, that's definitely what's happening. And I'm like, Jesus, can we go back to the pea soup part and just go to this is what's happening?
Right.
Or even the middle of, I don't know what's happening, but I am saying, yes, I am upset. She will fight me and say that she is not upset when she literally is a different human being walking around my house.
Yeah.
Where I go, you are so clearly. But that vulnerability for her within herself, because I'm a pretty safe person. At least I think I am. I mean, every person I know tells me every secret they've ever had.
Right.
And I find that must be part of who I am, but she will not do that. But at a certain point, if they get it done, I think you can help them say, okay, next time maybe this is how it could be easier for you.
Yeah.
Not to mention me, but for you, would make it easier for you because there's no need to go through all that.
Well, yeah, and having the ability to just say, I'm upset and I don't know why is so important.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time. I mean, it happens to me and I'm a grown up. There are times when I'm like, I need to figure out what's going on because I'm in a really piss poor mood.
Yeah.
Do you think though that that your daughter was not communicating it, or do you think that in those early days it was just not something that she could
Wrap her head around.
And so she didn't have an emotion about it until later?
I think she had an emotion. She didn't want to go there. I mean, for the same reasons you just said. I mean, I don't know why she's like that, where she feels she needs to be strong or not be emotional. I don't know where that comes from, but I think it was some of that.
I don't know where that comes from. Where could that come
I need
from?
to cry more.
No, no, that's not what I'm saying. No, not. I don't think you need to cry more. But you are very like you are kind of the rock.
Yeah, you seem very strong.
But okay, so then maybe it was my fault because when we came back and we were talking to them, I did not let myself have emotional breakdowns in front of them. Ever.
Yeah,
I was
that
not
might
going to
be
be
part
the
of it.
mom who like lost her shit. I was like, we are back in business here. We're going to preschool and we're having friends over and everything's going to be just fine.
Yeah, that might be. That may be. Really, because you give them permission by modeling, right? You know, my grandfather died when I was 6 months old and Georgia was 2.5. And I said to Georgia, Mommy needs to cry. I'm really sad. And I don't want you to be scared. I don't want you to think there's anything wrong, but my grandpa just died. Just like if your Papa or your Papa Jay died. And I'm really sad. So I'm going to go in this room and I'm going to cry for a little bit, but it's okay. And then I went in and was like, I was so close to my grandfather. I was just wrecked when he died.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it helped or not, but I felt like that was the responsible thing to do from my perspective, was that if I sat on that emotion, it was going to come out in a negative way somewhere else.
Right.
For me, that's the way I function.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's true. So I wouldn't ever cry about that in front of them. But then, like, you know, something like a glass would break and I'd have a total meltdown.
But I
What's
think
up with Mom?
that's so normal, though. I think that is we displace,
Yes.
right? We displace it,
Right.
Because, I mean, I had no idea if Georgia at 2.5 would understand what I was talking about with my grandfather. But I was like, but I need to at least try to let her know. But I think our instinct is to protect them and to go, I'm not going to show you, I'm not going to scare you by having mommy fall apart.
I think I thought of it that way too. Like, I don't want to fall apart. Like, I can't fall apart.
Yeah.
Is what I was saying to myself, I think. Is
Totally understand
I'm just
that.
not going to fall apart for these kids. I'm going to keep going. But what you said is perfect. Like, I need to cry right now. That would have been a great thing to say once in a while. I need to go cry right now. I miss Michael. I'm going to go cry in my bedroom and it's going to be fine.
And I'm okay.
Yeah.
Everything's still going to be fine.
No, I never cried until I was quite old, ever. And then one day I was like, I never cry. I'm just going to watch every single sad movie I can get my hands on and just cry because I think my body resisted it so much my whole life, to not show emotion. Because that was unsafe. Anything but just like stoicism. Everything else was not okay.
Yeah.
So I had to practice that. And I did not want my kids to have to practice that. That was just my own personal experience and perspective gained from that. But I think most people's instinct would be, I can't fall apart because I am the protector, I'm the adult, and they can't see that. They're too young. I have some questions though. Can we back it up?
Let's back it up.
So when you found this out, what was the primary emotion you felt when they said, we see a problem?
Surprise.
Surprise?
And almost immediate, like, okay, how do we solve this? I mean, the first part of what we thought it might be was that it might be Down syndrome.
Oh, okay.
Because what they identified in that 20-week ultrasound is that the neck fluid that they measure, which is an indicator of like chromosomal abnormalities, was high. So that's when they had us take this blood test, which is now how they do it now for the Down syndrome gene, or however you say it. So we took that, and then you had to wait a couple days. And so during that time, we were like, okay, so he might have Down syndrome. Okay. And I remember I called my friend who had a grown son who has Down syndrome, like asked her all about it. And then I was like, okay, well, it'll be fine. We get a call. It's not Down syndrome. All right. So we go in again, and that's when they found the diaphragm was not growing. And so that's when, I think it's common that a lot of people just go into research mode. And once you see that I didn't see the 50% fatality. I see 50% survival.
You saw glass half full.
So that's where we're going. Yeah.
Right. We're going glass half full
all the way.
Right. So now, do you think in believing in glass half full, did it make it easier or harder when it was glass half empty?
Again, it was very surprising.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm such an optimist. I always feel like things are going to go my way, not like I get everything I want, but that I have a positive take on things. And so when that happened, it was really jarring and being like, okay, I don't know how to make sense out of this,
Right.
And so I feel like since then, I've just been constantly asking myself, like, what's the meaning of all this? Like, in the grand scheme of my life, what does this mean? Like, what is the purpose? What are we supposed to learn from this experience? So that's, again, me trying to be like, okay, it was not lemonade, it was lemons, but still.
How can I make lemonade?
How can I make lemonade out of this?
That's a true optimist.
Yeah.
That's
I
really
know.
is a true optimist, to try and make lemonade out of every situation possible, which is pretty healthy, I think, in a lot of ways. Maybe in some ways you need to go, I fucking got lemons.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I didn't deserve lemons, and have that moment, because that's part of the truth too. Nobody wants to go through that. It's terrible. It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking, devastating, bewildering. I would be the same way. I would be trying to find a solution.
Yeah.
And I would be convinced that I could overcome it, that I could push this thing up a mountain by myself.
Yep.
And then when it didn't happen, I would be totally bewildered.
Yeah.
And like, I don't understand. I can make mountains move. Why couldn't I do this? To make sense of it would be the only thing I would do, is why did this happen? Is exactly what you are going through. I wonder what other people might go through who don't have that optimist outlook, if it is truly something that plummets them into depression. Did you ever go into depression?
I don't think I ever went into a depression. However, I've said that about all my pregnancies. And then I look back and I'm like, yeah, but I did wear sweatpants every single day for a long time. So I don't see it as depression.
That's not the same. I've been postpartum. That's not the same.
Okay. So then I did not.
Right.
I did not experience depression. But I did definitely pull back socially.
Okay.
So at first I tried to kind of like just keep things going. And then I was like, I just want to reprioritize how I want to spend my time. And so doing social things for a while, and sometimes still, I'm like really trying to get back to that. But I don't know. That's a part of me that changed, I would say.
Interesting. So you became less social, and you think that's because you were healing, or was it because you felt unsafe, or your understanding of the world is now different? What do you think?
I don't think it was feeling unsafe, because everyone was really supportive.
Right.
It was a little bit of, at first, maybe like being able to tell that people weren't sure how to talk to me about it. I didn't know if I wanted to talk about it. I didn't, because I was still making sense of it all. I didn't know what to say about it.
Yeah.
And so it was just, I kind of took that energy and just focused it on my kids, I would say mostly. Yeah. Like, I really stepped up my game as a mom, and like was able to be way more present with them and less focused on, I guess, like, I don't want to say like selfish pursuits, but like really thinking about like, what's my purpose in life, where I struggled with that early when they were younger. I was really still like, okay, but what am I going to do for myself, And then I feel like the last few years, which are just this strange period of time, because the time went really fast and really slow at the same time, I kind of didn't put as much pressure on myself to figure that out.
Right. To just be where you are.
Yeah.
Which is my mom. I think that is a struggle for a lot of women, to just be where you are and that be okay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you work or don't work, or have a career or don't have a career. It's an inner struggle, I think, to go, I'm okay right here.
Right.
This is enough. We were taught, I think, as women whose parents were in the, women's lib revolution, that you must achieve ABC. And the truth is, it's really hard sometimes to let yourself not achieve that.
Yeah.
And to just go, you know what? I actually enjoy every Tuesday. I pick up 4 kids from school and give them a ride home. It's one of my favorite things that I do, because I get to catch up with these 3 kids that I feel like are they're like nieces and nephews, because I've known them since kindergarten, and now they're in 7th grade.
Wow.
And our elementary school and our middle school get out at the exact same time of day. So I pick up all the kids who have siblings at the elementary school, so moms can get the youngers, and and all the kids love it so much. And I go, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I am creating a memory for myself and for these kids, and a relationship with these kids that I feel so privileged to have. And I don't know that I had that perspective when they were toddlers. I kept going, I've lost myself.
Yeah.
Where am I? I can't find me.
Right.
And to go, maybe this is me. And the old me is still here, but it's just not necessary in this exact moment. Maybe my purpose right now is something different, is to be a Girl Scout troop leader and to take 22 girls and say, let's learn some values and practice those values and learn how to camp and practice how to camp. And I love every freaking minute of it. And I still struggle with, seriously, Leanne? I mean, are you going to start wearing socks with sandals? What the fuck is going on here? Are you really just a Girl Scout leader? Because you hear the voice of our mom's generation saying, are you really? My mom would say to me verbatim, if you become a stay-at-home mom, I will have no respect for you.
Wow.
Those exact words.
Wow.
I will have no respect for you. So then you go, I've become the thing that my mother, I mean, obviously, caveat, my mom is crazy, but still that statement is in there where you go, wow, who else has no respect for me because I'm choosing to be a stay-at-home
You're
mom?
a damn good mom, though. I mean,
well, I do overachieve. I am an immersive human being. I don't really not immerse myself in something, which is a curse. But thank you for saying that. Really
I
sweet.
mean, we talked about this a little bit before the podcast started. Like it's always kind of surprising that there are some people who are just winging it as parents, because then there's people like you two who wake up every morning and you're like, okay, how am I going to be the best mom I can be?
Right? Homemade cookies today? Let's do it. Right? I can make the best homemade cookies on this block. I tell you that. I may be an overachiever, but I'm doing it here now.
Right.
So another question about the beginning and throughout this process is your marriage, not just your husband, but your marriage. You know, a marriage is like to me, it's almost like a business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, it's not, that sounds very cold, but it is.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? It is a functioning of two individuals that are a single individual in some capacities. How did that change, or did it change?
It changed in that I don't know if this is common or not, but I felt that our marriage definitely grew stronger as a result of this, because we were both in really good communication the whole time and really like hearing each other's perspective. Like the surgery thing, I mean, we didn't know what to do, but we thought we'd go check it out. And then once we did, so weird, I just realized there's a camera there.
Oh yeah, you're on Candid Camera.
I mean, I knew there, but I didn't like think about where they are. And then I saw the red light and I was like, oh, there's a camera.
Oh, there's one like on me. There's one on you. There's one on me. And there's one on Jocelyn.
This is being recorded.
Jocelyn has one somewhere. I don't know.
I don't know where it is. I've
Who
been here 4
knows?
They're all
times.
over.
And I still don't know where it is.
So anyway, it definitely felt like we were on the same page and that we were on this mission together. You know what I mean? Like we were both like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this better than anybody's done it. You know what I mean? We're gonna nail it every step of the way. We're gonna go to Houston, and when Houston didn't work out, okay, we're gonna go back and make the most of these next few months and do everything we can to, you know, make sure that he's got the best shot at living. And afterwards, everything fell apart. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, what?
I'm sorry. I just realized how dramatic a cliffhanger that was. And I was like, afterwards.
And then we divorced. So fuck that guy. I can't stand
So
him.
now I'm on my 5th marriage.
Hey, you should talk to my mom.
No, I was just going to say afterwards, it was still very much supportive, because we both, again, if it had been that we were on different pages, I think it would have been very challenging. But we both felt like, man, we gave that everything we had.
Right.
We gave that everything we had. We got to meet him. We got to hold him. Like, he is a special part of our family still. We both shared a belief that his spirit is with us all the time.
Right.
And I mean, when you have those things, it's not like, you know, when I had days where I was like, I just really miss him, you know, he would talk to me about it. I really felt supported, but also that there wasn't a lot of drama as a result of what we'd been through. I don't know.
Right.
So I guess I was very lucky.
Well, you both were.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like he received the same from you. Sounds like you were very supportive teammates for each other.
Yeah. I will say, I mean, again, this is kind of like on the spiritual spectrum, because of what we'd been through and because I was like, we did our best. I felt like after we should have been rewarded somehow. I don't mean like,
Interesting.
I felt like things should be easier after that. And we should just, like that was the hard thing we were going to go through in our lives. But just all the life hard stuff kept going.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting you say that because you have this heavy, right?
Yeah.
And then you're putting all the stuff all of us deal with on top of it,
Right.
which I would imagine would make it harder.
Yeah, because I don't know. I don't know why I had this expectation. I'm sure it was like some deep, like bad theology. You know what I mean? Like you go through something bad, then you get something good. And it didn't happen at all. I mean, I remember like in the months after, we realized we were going to have to move out of Santa Monica because we couldn't afford it. We were living in that teeny house. We couldn't afford a bigger place in Santa Monica. And I was like, oh gosh, we're going to have to move out of the neighborhood and like find a new community, like all this stuff where again, I was just like, I can't believe we have to endure the rest of life now, you know?
That's so fascinating.
Well,
Really
and I've talked to like other people who've gone through a divorce and stuff. I think I'm not the only one who has experienced that where like maybe in the divorce you think, okay, I've left my husband. Now it's going to get easier. Well, no, because then you have to find a new place. You have to figure out, and you know what I mean? It's like there's always like consequences because of one thing that the shit keeps coming.
Yeah, it's like a booby prize, right? You got the booby prize. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
I still have to carry all the stuff that everybody else has to carry.
Yes.
I would imagine that's pretty normal to think that. Like divorce, divorce is a death too. Mm-hmm. It's a death of that business / relationship, marriage, agreement. Yeah, I could see where you felt that way. They say marriages, I took this behavioral test with this guy a long time ago, Bert and I did. And he explained why people stay married, which was really fascinating. He said he can tell as soon as he reads a couple's test whether or not they'll stay married.
Whoa.
Because their value system match.
Huh.
Their personalities, like Bert is like 98% self-focused. I'm 98% other-focused. Like both of them are unhealthy. But when we got to our value systems, they lined up. And he went, this is why you're married. And this is why you'll stay married. Because the personality stuff is just noise, really. You can get through the noise if that foundation of your value system is compatible. If you have an incompatibility there, that's where I think people who go through really tragedy, like you went through, fall apart, is because their value system maybe wasn't in alignment to start with. Yeah. So when you have this extreme adversity, it really puts a strain on that value system because then you go, well, this is what's important to me, and the other person, that's not important to them at all. So how do you reconcile that? That would be very hard, I would imagine. And I know people go through miscarriages and deaths of children and all sorts of terrible things and can't stay together, can't make it through. So that's a real testament to how your value systems really must line up.
I think that is spot on. And it's like you said with the noise, I mean, when we were going through this, it was like everything else gets pushed aside and you get to the core values. Like, okay, we're committed to this child. Yeah. No matter what, we're going to make sure he has the best shot and all that stuff that you were just talking about. It becomes very obvious. And I'm sure, for couples who maybe differ on their views of what to do in that kind of situation, that would be extremely stressful.
I can't imagine how they'd get through it.
Yeah.
So in this whole process, from finding out through the birth and through Michael passing and your funeral, what do you think was the hardest thing you had to deal with?
The hardest thing was after he died, knowing what to say to people in person.
Right.
And I still remember we used to go to Bob's Market in Santa Monica, and it's like this cute little market that's still there. And the butcher, he sees me every week. Hey, how you doing? Hey, how's your baby? and there's like 3 people behind me, and I have to say, oh, he had a condition and he died, and just the look on his face. I mean, it was like that over and over again for a long time.
Wow.
And so I think part of what I'm doing now in helping women tell their stories is because at that time that would have been really helpful to me to be like, okay, how do you want to say this when you interact with somebody? You know, how do you want to talk about your child? What's the short version? What's the 5-minute version? You know what I mean?
Right. Let's talk about that right now, because, you know, when I did my podcast on divorce, that's what the divorced mom said.
Yes. And it is true. That was the thing that I hated the most, was seeing somebody that I hadn't seen in a while and having to tell them. And I still have not told my housekeeper.
Oh my God.
I mean, she knows because my boyfriend lives with me, but I could not figure out how to tell her. And then like now I think when people are getting divorced.
You didn't tell your housekeeper.
I didn't tell
She's
her.
like, oh, we no longer have boxer briefs. It's tidy whitey. Something's changed in here.
She would sometimes ask me how Mr. Mike was doing, and I would tell her because I knew how he was doing.
That's really funny.
I never knew that.
I couldn't think of how to tell her. And I mean, it's so awful. And my situation is obviously less dramatic than Anne's, but I wish that I had a script in my head for all of those scenarios. The person that I haven't seen in a long time that I run into in the grocery store. I mean, I remember being at a birthday party with this woman, Ruthana, who is lovely. And I realized she loved me and she loved Mike, and that it was going to devastate her. And I hid in the corner. My girlfriends who knew were laughing at me. They were like, get out of the corner and go tell her. And I said, you guys have to go tell her for me. I can't do that to her. And to not only have a script for how you're going to tell it, but also the script for continuing the conversation in a comfortable way, so that it's not just you tell them and then they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's you tell them and then you have a way to follow up and kind of change the course of the conversation.
To control the conversation.
Yeah. And Jocelyn, that was so helpful. I did a podcast last week. That was my first time being a guest on a podcast. And Jocelyn had the suggestion of think about how you want to, what you want to say if it gets uncomfortable talking about Michael, because that was a podcast that was about like your career, how your career changes after motherhood. And so it wasn't going to be the main focus. I was going to talk about it, but it wasn't like the whole subject. And I was like, that is a great, and I did have that in mind, but like, I wish I'd had that in mind on day 2 after he was, after he was born. So,
so this experience with Michael, after it was over, you thought there's something missing in for women or for people when they lose a child. There's no tool. Is that what you thought? Tell me what you thought.
No, I didn't think about it for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I just knew that I did not use any resources or tools or anything. I wasn't really aware of what existed other than this support group at UCLA where he was delivered. And I never went to that support group.
No.
Because I was, marching right back into my real life. So this past year, I was going to be ramping up my marketing business, which I do marketing for small businesses. And I was part of this group called Alt MBA. And then I did a follow-up class called the Podcasting Fellowship. And in the Podcasting Fellowship, people are like, what are your podcast names? And I wrote, mine's going to be Marketing Potluck. And I'm going to be talking about all different ideas of marketing and small business ideas. And I got 1 like. And I was like, oh, I thought that was a great idea.
Right.
So then I went on iTunes and I look at marketing podcasts, and sure enough, more than enough.
Yeah.
The world doesn't need another marketing podcast. And I don't know what made me think of it, but I typed in infant loss. And I was like, I just wonder, I'd like to listen to an infant loss podcast.
Yeah.
And the only thing I found were certain episodes of parenting podcasts.
Right.
And then there was one full podcast dedicated to baby loss, and it was called The Joyful Morning. And it's a Christian themed podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought, oh man, I had never looked for it before, but that doesn't exist. It's like a baby loss podcast that's just about that for people who are going through that and feel really alone. Like that's when,
everything
everything,
start turning.
the wheels start turning. Like, I think I could do that. And so I just started exploring resources. I was talking to Jocelyn all about it. And, I came to the conclusion that because I'm a writer, the best way to use that part of what I do in helping women is to help them write their stories, tell their stories. I like thinking of things that happen in a storytelling way. I guess, I like the idea of writing your life story, being the author of your story. And so all those things, it just kind of came together so that I thought, okay, that's a service I would really feel useful in.
Right.
And that I feel kind of uniquely equipped to do.
Definitely.
So that's one part of it, is the writing of the stories. And so it could be for like people who want to send an email announcement to their friends and family. Might be somebody who wants to write their story and turn it into a piece of artwork, or like a keepsake book.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
It is. That's really beautiful.
I feel like it should be, it could be a helpful thing.
It could be extremely helpful. It gives you a place to put your feelings.
Yeah.
To really place them somewhere, and then you can revisit them.
Right.
And remember, it's an amazing thing to do.
And it is one of just speaking about resilience, it's one of the pillars of resilience is being able to tell your story powerfully. And so I love that you're doing this, and you're the perfect person for it, because you are naturally an optimistic person.
Extremely.
Yeah.
And, the best thing you can do about someone you've lost, no matter how old they are, is to honor them.
Yes.
Is to honor them with grace and gratitude. And that's so graceful. The way you've described the whole experience, I kept thinking she handled this with so much grace. There was so much grace. And grace is a big word. Grace is a behavior. But to me, grace is also like... it's a spiritual word, right?
And it's given to you. It
is.
Yeah.
And it comes from a place of great humility. You can't have grace, I don't think, really, if you don't have humility, if you don't have some kind of recognition of your place in the planet, in the sphere, in the world. And I don't know, grace is a really powerful word. I named Isla Grace, because grace just means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And if more people just handled their day-to-day lives with grace and gratitude, when things like this come up, grace is natural. Grace is not natural for a lot of people, I don't think. And grace is something that it sounds like you would be giving to people who came to you and with this extreme loss,
Hopefully, but also what I've realized in working on this is that so much is given to me by doing it.
Right.
Like I get to talk about Michael when I never had an opportunity to talk about him before, like that's going to be part of a conversation I have daily,
Right.
And I don't know. And just, so you guys, I did finally go to my first support group.
You did?
Last night.
Oh, you did?
That was my first one ever.
What'd you think?
It was really, emotionally, I didn't cry there, but it was really emotionally trying, I guess is the word, to hear other people's stories and know that everybody's story is a little bit different. The way that they interpret the story is different. Their experience after is different. I really liked seeing the couples who were there together. There were two couples who were there, and just seeing how close they were and helping each other. That was really beautiful.
Did Mark go with you?
He didn't go with me. We're divorced, so no.
Been meaning to tell you, but I can't tell my maid.
I just couldn't tell Jocelyn. I told everybody I couldn't tell Jocelyn. No, he didn't come with me. The reason I was going there is I called this woman, Gina Kornfind, who runs the group, and I remember her from this celebration of life ceremony that we went to. It was the only thing we did. Like that was a formal thing for him with the hospital. So we went to that, and it was like they had a reception. They read the names of the children who had died. They had a speaker. And so I thought of her when I was putting all this together, and I was like, I wonder if she, has resources that I should look into. And so when I described it to her, she's like, would you teach a writing workshop for the group? I've been looking for them to do something creative, like a creative outlet for them. So I'm doing that next month, but I wanted to go and just see the vibe.
Yeah.
And so when I went, I realized I wasn't there as an observer. Like, I'm also experiencing healing through this. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm going to go back for the workshop, but then I want to keep going back. It's just crazy that like 5 years later, it would still be useful to me. But I think what I will find more of is that a lot of the feelings that I didn't allow myself to feel at the time will probably reemerge.
Sounds a little bit like your daughter.
Yes.
Interesting. Apple not falling far.
You are so right.
That's right. Maybe now it's safe.
Maybe now it's safe. Wow.
And having the opportunity probably to talk about him doesn't come up too often in normal day-to-day life.
No. And I hadn't known anybody personally that this happened to. Later, I found out that there was a mom at our school that this happened 2 years ago, but she and I have still never talked about it, even though we both know, she gets my Christmas card. In our Christmas card, we mention Michael every year. But we've just never had the conversation. I don't know. It
surprises me a little bit because one of the things that I find so remarkable about you is that it's always been easy for me to talk to you about it. And you did such a good job of keeping him alive and in conversations with your friends. And I never had that, oh God, what am I going to say to Anne emotion.
Yeah, but I don't have a lot of friends, so
I'm special.
Remember, she shrunk her social circle after this.
You made the cut.
You made the cut.
We kept talking.
But I do, for any viewers who have been through something like that, like you were a good example of, you really communicated to people how to support you. Like that first email when you were 20 weeks pregnant, I'm probably one of the people who responded with sending good vibes. I'm sorry. But you told us. And I remember you came over to my house one day. I was watching your kids and you came over and you were like, I just had a breakdown and I kind of need to vent and I need you to not try to talk me out of it. Yes. And you said it much more gracefully than that. But it was so good to have those instructions. Like, I don't need to try to make Anne snap out of this right now. I just am going to listen to her.
I so remember that breakdown. Were you going to say something?
No, nothing. I just said right.
Oh, I was just going to say, I remember that breakdown because I was driving to your house and I was pregnant. So Jocelyn was watching my kids. I was doing some work. I was pregnant, pretty far along. And I had been so good in the pregnancy about staying present and being like, okay, today is today. Everything's fine. And my mantra was, right now, everything's fine. Everything's fine right now. And on that drive to your house, my mind skipped ahead a few months, a few years. Oh my gosh. Oh, what if he's like a vegetable and I just have to feed him every day and I can't handle it? And what if I can't work and we need childcare for the kids? What if he's in the hospital for a year? It was like a flurry of all these thoughts that I hadn't let myself think about because I was trying to be present. They just all hit me at once.
Right.
And it was probably the closest I came to having an anxiety attack. But I remember I called Mark and I'm like, okay, I'm really freaking out about all these things. And I listed him and he's like, just don't worry about it. There's nothing we could do about it right now. If it happens, we'll figure it out. And I was like, okay. And then I came to your house and told you.
Yeah, by the time you got to my house, you were nowhere near having an anxiety attack.
Okay,
you
good.
were, yeah.
But that's something that happens, I think, with people a lot. I think that we don't give our friends the benefit of supporting us. When that's what friends are supposed to do.
Yeah.
If you're having a bad day, I want that bad day. Give it to me. That's what I do as a friend. Now, if your bad day was every day and that's who you were, that might be something different. But you're clearly going through something extraordinary. So that's what friends are for. This is a real goofy thing to say.
Should we sing it?
But I say that all the time. I have this one friend who does not ask for help ever. And I go, I know what's going on here. I know that you have ABC going on. I call you and say anything I can do, and you say no every time. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to say yes because you're devaluing my role in your life.
Yeah,
That
people
is so
want to
true.
help.
I
And they
want to help. I'm calling, going, give it to me.
Feel connected to you if you don't let them help you. And I know sometimes people don't want certain kinds of help,
Right.
but you can say to somebody, listen, can you be one of my friends that we just don't talk about this with? Can we be
Absolutely.
like, can you be a friend that goes out and gets drinks with me and we talk about something
Yeah.
unrelated?
Here's what I need from you.
Yeah.
Once a week, we go get our nails done.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I need from you. Okay, now I feel like I am here for you. And to say, I need to fall apart. I've had that conversation with my friends before. Listen, I just need to vent. Don't need any judgment. Don't need any like, hey, solutions.
Yeah.
I don't need any opinions. I need an ear to hear me spew because I know that half of what I'm saying makes no sense.
Right.
And just Kathy Fromkin is who I usually call and go, you ready? Here we go. Vomit. And then she goes, I got it. I hear you. I got it. I hear you. I totally know what you mean. Yeah, totally. And that's all you need is someone to go, she's not even validating what I'm saying. She's validating who I am.
Yep.
I feel like. She's
Has
going,
she
I
ever
got
been
you.
on the podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I got to find
So
those.
much so that people
I want to
think
know, Kathy.
they call her my
Fromkin.
sidekick. All my listeners are like, "Where's your sidekick? She hasn't been on for a while."
Oh, that's
No, there
funny.
was she never tells me no when I ask her to do a podcast, and she's a social worker, so she's really
good. Yeah.
Same kind of thought process. And she's like me. She's very curious, and she's very open to other people's opinions, other than her own. But yeah, you really, especially at times like that, have to let your friends help you. Even if it is, hey, can I watch your kids? Yes, you can.
Yeah.
That's such a huge help. And it makes the friend on the other end feel valued,
Right.
feel important in your life. It's not that you need to take care of your friend, but to have the different perspective, because with my friend who doesn't let me help her, she feels like she's burdening me. So she'll never say yes because she feels like a burden. That's incorrect.
Yeah.
Right? That's the problem. It's not that my friends are not burdens ever.
Right.
They're just not, especially when there's something like that going on.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not a burden when they call and go, I just can't get off the couch. Can you pick my kid up today from school? Absolutely. I'm absolutely fine.
I need
That's
to
not a
do
burden
more of
either. We all need to do more of that because, again, we were raised in the women's lib era
Yeah,
where
gotta
we
do it all.
can basically, what was that commercial? I can clean up the kid, make the dinner, fry it up in a pan.
Yes.
And never
Yeah.
let you forget you're a man. Remember that? 'Cause
Yes,
I'm
yes.
a woman. Well, it was implying I can work and cook and clean and fuck you every night. Thank you, because I can do all of that. It's
Yeah.
just not true. It's a myth.
Definitely not the fucking.
Not every night, baby. Nope. But yeah, it's not true. We showed up on this planet as tribal people, and I think we have tried to become. I am a pillar of one, and it's a lie.
Well, I found that because during that period I was so open to accepting help from people, and even after he was born and died, people set up a meal train for me. I love meal trains.
Heck yeah,
Love them.
I don't think I brought you a meal.
Oh, that's okay. You did plenty.
you did other things.
But my
'Cause I'll
point
still
is,
send you one. Just let me know
Sunday
when to
would be
sign
great.
up.
It made me see more what I can do for other people when they need it, when they might not know. So now I feel like I'm really good at setting up a meal train.
Right.
But also offering to bring a kid home from baseball or whatever. If you're able to accept it, it's no big deal to give it. And then people feel more comfortable accepting because
Absolutely.
you're modeling.
Yeah.
Exactly, because you're modeling, because it's reciprocal.
Yes.
Friendship is
It
supposed
all comes
to be.
around. No one ever ends
Exactly.
up doing more than their share because
No.
the friendship would dissolve.
The friendship would dissolve.
Yeah.
Here's another thing about this. People who are reluctant to have you help with their kids, it is easier to have other children around. It is
Yeah.
like, I remember that. I came down and babysat and I brought my Junie, I think, with me. And it was Junie and your 3 kids. And I was like, Oh, I basically just read a book because the four of them were a band of one.
Yeah. They just go hang
it's
out
great.
together. It is.
It is. It's much easier. Even picking up at school, they rush to the car. You know how long it takes Isla Grace Kreischer to get to the car when there's not somebody else? I'm like, lady,
Yeah.
are you like crawling?
Yeah.
Well, how so slow? And then on this day, on Tuesdays, boom, boom, boom. All four of them show up like boom, 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 boom.
My daughter will do her homework if she has a friend at the house. I'm like, how about you guys do your homework? And my daughter pulls it out of her pack like she's been doing it all along.
Let me
Gets
show
a
you what I
pencil
got
out.
here.
She writes her name at the top like she knows how to spell it. I'm kidding. She does.
That's true.
Oh, Judy.
Okay.
Here's another. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Here's another.
This is one other thing that I like really, really learned from this is that so often when people have experienced something like this, my inclination and probably a lot of people's inclination is don't talk about it. And you, for whatever reason, like cleared that up very quickly that wasn't what you wanted. I don't think you ever said not what I want, but it just was so obvious that you wanted to talk about it and that it was like just easy to call you up and go, oh, hey, like I gave you that book because it reminded me of Michael.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it and I really liked it. So
Sorry, I can't either. But I remember the gesture.
Well, then let me ask you this. How did you do that? Because on my divorce podcast, that was one of their big complaints is that people don't know what to say to them. That the friends they've had, one of the women on my podcast was a part of a large couple group.
Yeah.
And now neither she nor her husband are in that group anymore. And it's so awkward when she sees anybody from that group, they don't know what to say to her. And, you know.
This actually came up in the support group yesterday.
It did?
Yeah. Because I think people who maybe didn't take the initiative to tell people how they want to communicate about it, people are not saying anything to them, including family. And it's very, very hurtful to them.
Right.
But at the same time, they didn't say, hey, here's how we're going to talk about it from now on.
Right.
So they said that what has really been helpful to them is people who will just out and out say, I don't know what to say here. I don't know how to make you feel better, but I just want to listen. If you want to talk about it, I'm here to listen.
Right.
And so the friends who are just able to listen to them talk about it, or just even open the door to that possibility, maybe the person's not going to take you up on it and maybe just say, oh, thanks, I don't feel like talking about it. But just, again, just the gesture, just showing that you care enough to say, you know, I'm sure, you know, like on Mother's Day, that was a big thing because Mother's Day just happened. And so these women said, you know, there was no acknowledgement of my child by my mother or whatever it was. And that's really, really hard for them. And so to be able to do something like just say, hey, you know, I was thinking of Robin today and how you must be thinking about her and how are you feeling today or whatever. I don't know. I don't even know the right way for every single person, but I know that if you're unsure, you can just bring it up. And if they don't want to talk about it, you'll probably get that message pretty quickly.
And I think that if you're on the end of the person that it happened to, and obviously I haven't been through what you've been through, but Mike and I split up twice. And the first time that we split up, I did not want to talk about it. I talked to you about it, but I didn't talk to very many people about it. And I lost friendships and I hurt a lot of people. And in retrospect,
But why would they be hurt if you don't want to talk about it?
Because I didn't tell them about what was going on. I just said we split up and I don't want to talk about it. And I think
That's what you said to me. And I went, okay.
Yeah. I think it's really hard to feel. I think it's hard to feel intimate with somebody. Intimate is maybe the wrong word, but it's hard to feel connected to somebody when they're not disclosing anything about their lives. And I wish in retrospect that I had acknowledged, like up front, I had said, this is what's going on. These are the emotions that I have about it. It's really important for me to keep myself together. And so I'm not going to talk about it. What you can do is A, B, and C. And so, and I think it's in any situation where something is causing people to have a hard time communicating with you. It's really good to be able to like know that script ahead of time. Like, hey, Mother's Day is coming up. And I mean, the responsibility should not be on the person that it happened to, but But if you can say Mother's Day is coming up and, please acknowledge it.
But that's part of it, is that in our culture, we don't know how to address some of these things.
Right.
And so until we get to that point,
Yeah.
it is on you to teach somebody what you want,
Well, I'm reading this great book called It Takes 2 Minutes to Build Resilience.
Hey.
Great book. And last night we read the one about taking care of your needs, which is, know what your need is and how do you get that need met, right? It is not really another person's responsibility to get your need met, especially if that other person doesn't know you have that need.
Yeah.
Right.
So, how could you possibly read your mind if I have no idea what you need? And it's such an emotional, sensitive, vulnerable subject, as shitty as it would be to be the person going through that, to get your needs met could be, I don't know, as simple as sending an email to everybody saying, here's what I need. I need you to be okay when I say I can't talk about this.
Yeah.
And I need you to be okay when I say I need to talk about this now. I need you to just be open or whatever it is that you need, and express, I don't know what I need. So be patient with me. To be communicative is not something that's natural for a lot of people anyway either, because I think, at least where I grew up, you don't want to burden anybody with your bad feelings or problems. They send a meal and then that's, I did my duty, is how the perspective of the person going through, when that's not true. You've all been on the other side of someone in your community passing away, not even as close as you, and wanting to be there for that person. But I guess just communicating your need is one of the ways you build resilience.
Yeah.
And it is necessary. I mean, I would never presume. I'm the person you described, where when my friend got divorced, I said, I don't really know what to say, and I don't know what you need.
Yeah.
But I'm here. You want to go have a drink? You want to go have a chat? You want to go to the park? You want to go for a walk? You want to laugh? You want to talk about it? You want to talk about it? I'm cool with all of it. But I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And she said something like, I don't really know what I need.
Yeah.
So then at least we know, okay, we both
Right.
don't have a clue, but I'm here for you.
Yeah.
So if you need it, just call me.
Exactly. And she knows that you're there for her when she's ready.
Right.
Yeah.
If she's ever ready. And I don't need to be there for her person. I just need her to know that as a friend, I'm here, but I don't need to be that person.
Yeah.
Like with you, when you said, I don't want to talk about it, I don't need to be the person you talk to me about that. I just need you to know I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm good with whatever you need, because I'm not going through anything. So,
Well, and what you said about, losing friendships because you weren't forthcoming about what you were going through. I have recently thought of some friends that I guess I kind of dropped because I didn't keep them in my inner circle. And now I would like to have a friendship with them again.
right.
But now it's on me, because maybe they didn't know what to say, but I wasn't reaching out to them either. And so now it's my turn to, I'm going to have to do this, call her up and say, hey, I've been kind of, retreating the last couple of years, but I really miss you. And I hope I didn't hurt your feelings, and I'd love to have dinner. I'm like gearing myself up for that conversation because I'm not looking forward to it. I don't know, but I also have like all these ideas of what she thinks of me, in as far as like, did she think I was mad at her, or that she wasn't supportive? Does she feel bad that she wasn't more supportive? It's like I'm making up all these stories. Maybe she's totally fine and just says, okay, great, let's go to dinner.
Just giving you space.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Assuming things gets us all in trouble.
Oh
doesn't
my
it?
gosh. I do so much of that.
I spelled that word out for Isla the other day because she was filling all these assumptions.
Yeah.
And I underlined ass and you and me. And I said, assuming makes an ass out of you and me. And she went, oh, that's good. I'm going to use that.
She thinks you made it up. She's like,
My favorite.
She's like, I'm going to use that. I'm using that. I was like, yeah, so don't assume anything ever. If you have a question, ask.
Yeah.
Hey, are you upset with me? Hey, are you playing Dungeons and Dragons without me?
Do you guys play Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh, Isla's hardcore Dungeons and Dragons.
Whoa.
Hardcore. It's had a bit of a resurgence at her
Yes.
middle school. She has a club at school. They're like, I had to buy like 4 different sets of dice. I mean,
Whoa.
it's for real. She's some kind of jellyfish person that shoots jellyfish tentacles as like arrows. I mean, they got ice. It's nutty.
There are like entire streaming shows dedicated to people just playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. And
Me
I'm
neither.
like, this sounds really boring. But
Oh, no.
no, not to.
I know it's not boring just based on how enthusiastic the people who play it are about it. But I don't know.
It's Candyland to me. Like, I don't know any difference between that and Candyland.
Right.
And I'm like, Jesus Christ, that sounds miserable.
It sounds complicated. That's why I stay away from
does.
it. Okay.
There's a lot of like, I don't really understand it either. You roll the dice and it determines what kind of decision you now have to make.
Okay.
And this is, as I understand it, anybody who plays Dungeons and Dragons that are listening and I'm screwing this up, I apologize.
You're going to get so many
This
letters.
is what was explained to me by my 12-year-old, right? So they have this group and they roll the dice to determine like what kind of person or who they are, but everything's really happening in like a medieval time frame. But somehow she's a jellyfish person in medieval times. I don't know how that works. Probably some roll of the dice.
Yeah.
But I guess the roll of the dice determines what kind of decision you have to make. And sometimes the roll of the dice determines that you have died.
Okay.
So you can actually be killed. In this context, there's a lot of imagination that happens. It's a lot of creativity, as I understand it from Isla. And she's highly creative. So it's a perfect fit for her little brain. And yeah, it's there's another.
How old is she?
12.
12. Okay.
She'll be 13 in the summer. There's another boy down the street who's been hardcore into it for like 2 years. And they're like every Friday night. It's
so
like
fun.
all night. This
Yeah.
group of boys just plays Dungeons and Dragons. And he tried to get his mom and his sister. His sister's George's age, and his mom and sister were like, don't get it. Totally don't get it.
Maybe
We
I'm
rolled the
gonna start
dice, we didn't get it. Right?
Yeah, it
Anyway.
actually it does actually sound fun. But I remember when I was a kid, people like in my community thought that it was like worshiping Satan.
Oh,
it was
really?
so
Same.
wrong to play
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons. And so now it's this kind of socially acceptable thing. I don't know what I think of it. I'm like, are you killing people? What's going on? Because
Is it still satanic?
according to my
Montana
community,
standards.
Yeah, Montana.
this is really bad.
It was bad in Georgia too. It was
Isn't that
of
funny?
the devil. Yeah. But
Huh.
it's just a bunch of dice.
Right.
But of course, in Bowden, Georgia, poker was of the devil. So, people still played it on the side.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Someone in my family sent me an article about how yoga is of the devil too.
I saw that recently. That I was like, no, come
No,
on.
uh-uh.
That's a real stretch.
It really is. Oh,
Pun? Pun?
good job, man.
That was a good pun. That was a good pun. In my church, sex was of the devil, unless it was to procreate. So
Wow.
I don't believe God made you feel that good when you had it to not use it. That's just my own opinion.
There's this great movie that came out a few years ago, but I just saw it. Captain Fantastic. Have you guys seen it?
No.
Anyway, you should watch it. But what you just said reminds me that the dad is like very matter of fact with his kids. Even his little like 4-year-old is like, Daddy, what's sexual intercourse? And he's like, it's when a man puts his penis inside a woman's vagina. And he's like, why would he do that? For their mutual pleasure and to propagate the human race.
Right? Just
Wait, I have
flat.
seen this one.
Oh.
I think I have seen it. Is
I
it they're the one they
loved
live
it.
off
They
the
live,
grid?
yeah, off the
yes.
grid.
Yes, I love that movie.
Yeah,
Man,
have
I
never
think
seen
you'd like it.
I probably would. Captain Fantastic.
Yeah.
I remember when it came out, and I just got by me. It was one of those that you just didn't.
You would
make
love it.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
So, do you have a full blown company? What's your
My website is onwardstories.com. So a fun thing that I just put together for the website, our friend Julie.
Mhm.
So Julie's daughter was born on the same day as Michael.
Oh wow!
And every year, I think every year, maybe like every other year, she would send me an email on her daughter's birthday and say, talk about like taking initiative and being a great friend. She would say, hey, I'm just thinking of you today, thinking about Michael, and I hope you're doing well.
Aw.
She did not have to do that. And it was so incredibly generous of her. And so when I hear about people saying like, no one acknowledges my child's birthday or acknowledges me on Mother's Day, with this email software I use, I discovered that you can send people an email on their birthday. So I thought, what if we made it so that someone could receive a digital card on their child's birthday? So that's what we built.
That's
You put in
amazing.
your child's name, your child's birthday, and I'll send you a card.
That's fantastic.
So if you go to onwardstories.com/wife,
Okay.
wife,
Wife.
then you'll find out like where you can put your information in.
That's amazing.
Isn't that fun?
That is what a great service.
Thank you.
That's
I
really
feel like,
great.
I mean, I'm going to use it.
You're so smart.
I'm going to send a card to myself.
You should.
Well, talk about glass half full, because I don't know if this was the reason that Michael passed through your life, but what a powerful thing to come out of it, to make a choice to take that tragic, terrible time and pay it forward, really, to help other people cope by writing their own stories, by getting a digital birthday card so they have some acknowledgement on that day. That's so powerful.
Thanks, Leanne.
Really healing and just beautiful.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me on here to talk about it and talk about him. And I mean, I know it was maybe not your usual topic, but I really appreciate you having me on here.
No, I'm so grateful that you talked about it. That's there's so many, what I keep hearing from people who listen when I do topics like this or depression, or even though I did one a long time ago on autism and dyslexia, is that people are hungry who have been through that to find something similar, because like you said, you didn't know anybody else at all who had experienced anything like that. So there are people all over who don't know anybody else. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I think that you should, that we all have a common experience. You know, I didn't experience what you experienced, but I've experienced loss and extreme disappointment and thinking it was going to go my way, like you said, and it not going my way. And so many people can relate to just that. And even, I know I kept correlating the divorce, but even though it's not the same, they're both loss and they're both full of grief.
Oh, yes.
And they both have social kind of, I don't want to say stigma, but people don't know how to handle it socially. So even though we talked about your experience, there are so many other people, I think, that don't have that experience that can relate to the process of having something terrible happen, getting to the other side, and how do you build from that? Because that's what you did, is you got through this and started building. Even with going to the group session last night, that's another building, and that will inform how you help people write their stories. It will inform everything else you do. It's a beautiful give on your part. I think people don't think about the give that needs to happen with each other in a community. You know, I talk about the stuff with my mom, partly because it makes me feel better, but partly because it's a give. Because when I found that first book where I realized I wasn't the only person, that my mother fit in a box, so to speak. I thought she was just this crazy wackadoo person that had no box. But when I found a box, I went, oh my God, there's other people? There's other people that understand what I went through, that I'm not the only person who suffered through this borderline personality disorder mom. That made me feel so much better and less broken. So that's what you just did, is offered another avenue for someone who maybe doesn't even have your experience to feel less broken and less alone, because we're not really broken.
No,
but
and we're not alone.
And we're not alone. And we shouldn't feel that way. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you for Jocelyn for recommending it.
Yeah.
She was like,
Jocelyn.
I got a good one for you.
Oh, thank you so
here's
much.
how I feel about Anne too. I mean, when this all happened, like, Anne and Mark are the last people in the world that I would wish this upon. But now I look at it and I'm like, these are the perfect people to have handled this. Like, I'm so glad that Michael had you guys as parents.
Thank you.
And I wouldn't want it to be anybody else.
I know what you mean. I mean, I think about how his life was really short, but man, he was totally loved, you know?
Right.
From start to finish.
That's amazing. And what a gift for you.
Yeah.
To be able to love that person and to see him and hold him and have him make it to term and have 2 days that you could give love. It's about the give, man.
The give.
We don't give enough in the society these days. It's always about what about me?
Yeah.
What about me? What about me?
I'm so glad you're doing this podcast
Me
too. Just
too.
Yeah. You didn't know I was this holistically hippy dippy, did you? I didn't talk about this in tennis. So I do believe that. I believe that if we focused more on giving and grace and gratitude, we'd have a much better world instead of what's in it for me. No, you don't agree with my side? Then your side definitely sucks. And it's not
Yeah.
true. It's not. It's absolutely not true. There's common ground in every human being. You can find it.
You're a good person to bring that to light, I feel.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'll put your website on my website.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
What do we do now? Leave?
You can just keep talking
you just stand up and walk away.
and sing.
Out.